Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer. We're going to completely change how you think about operational troubleshooting today. You know that feeling when you're just putting out the same fires over and over in your organization? Well, that's because firefighting is inherently reactive, right? You're continually chasing the flames instead of looking for the spark. So today, we're shifting gears to the proactive. We're moving away from chaotic firefighting and replacing it with a highly structured, systematic investigation. We're going to give you the exact tools you need to elevate your operations and become a master problem solver. To do that, we need a clear roadmap. Here is our investigative docket for today. We'll start with Part 1, pulling problems by the roots. Then Part 2, developing the problem solver's mindset. Part 3 covers gathering concrete evidence. Part 4 is knowing exactly where to look. And finally, Part 5, ensuring the fix stays fixed. Let's get started. Section 1, pulling problems by the roots, or as we like to call it, the illusion of the fix. I want you to visualize your organization as a thriving garden. Now, in any garden, problems are going to pop up, right? Kind of like weeds. When a weed pops up, what happens if you simply snap off the visible leaves? Well, those leaves represent the symptoms. Snapping them off might make the garden look fantastic for a day or two. You get that quick dopamine hit, a false sense of accomplishment. But we all know the weed is inevitably going to grow back, and usually it's stronger than before. To truly eliminate the weed, you have to dig deep into the soil and pull it out entirely by the roots. And that is the fundamental difference between superficially treating a symptom and systematically addressing a root cause. This brings us to root cause analysis, or RCA. It's an absolutely essential discipline in operational excellence. It literally forces an organization to shift its focus away from just fixing those superficial symptoms and instead move towards systematically identifying and addressing the underlying problems so they never happen again. The thing is, our brains actually love the apparent cause because it's easy and it offers instant gratification. When business processes are complex, settling for the very first logical explanation is deeply seductive. But settling guarantees the problem will return down the line. RCA demands that we push past our psychological comfort zones and keep digging until we find the real source of the failure. Moving on to Section 2, the problem solver's mindset. Think of this as our investigator's rulebook. Before we even start hunting for clues, we have to lock in a very specific mental model. And it's this: blame processes, not people. I can't emphasize this enough. The way we think about failure dictates how successfully we will solve it. When an error occurs, our basic human instinct is to figure out who messed up. If an operator presses the wrong button, our knee-jerk reaction is to blame the operator. But as investigators, we must focus intensely on how and why a process failed. An investigator asks why the system allowed the wrong button to be pressed so easily in the first place. True root causes love to hide behind visible symptoms, especially the ones that look incredibly like human error. This mindset is built on a few core pillars. First, you must look beyond the surface. Remember, symptoms are just signals. They aren't the solution. Second, you have to abandon the silver bullet myth. Problems almost never have just one magical, perfectly packaged fix. Often, there are multiple root causes interacting in the background. Third, rely strictly on concrete data. Assumptions and gut feelings literally have no place in a proper investigation. Fourth, empower corrective action. You need to provide stakeholders with enough actionable information to actually fix the underlying issue. And finally, think long-term. Good root cause analysis turns every problem, every failure, into a sustainable organizational learning opportunity. Section 3, gathering concrete evidence. It's time to follow the data. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, well, if your search for a root cause isn't heavily supported by hard data, the credibility of your entire investigation is just going to crumble. Opinions simply do not solve problems. We need a strict, data-driven approach. Imagine a local restaurant that is suddenly hit with a massive wave of negative Yelp reviews. The owner could panic, or they could guess at the problem, perhaps assuming the servers have just been lazy lately. But instead, they decide to use a structured approach to systematically track down the actual source of this bad feedback. To make sense of all that noise, they collect the recent feedback and categorize it. Suddenly, a trend emerges from the chaos. The complaints overwhelmingly fall into kitchen equipment, food quality, and staff training. Categorizing data like this, it's a real game changer. It strips away the emotion and the finger-pointing and replaces it with cold, hard facts. It gives the team a clear, undeniable way to communicate this concrete evidence to other stakeholders, like the head chef, directing the investigation exactly where it needs to go rather than just chasing shadows. Section 4, knowing exactly where to look. We are rounding up the suspects. Okay, so you have your data. Now, where do you point your magnifying glass? A major pitfall for problem-solving teams is that they only look in familiar places. If you only look where you're comfortable, you're going to fall victim to confirmation bias and end up with a totally incomplete analysis. To prevent this, we use a structured where-to-look framework called a root cause taxonomy, like the one developed by the United States Department of Energy. This forces us to systematically round up all the usual suspects across the entire system. Is the root cause hiding in the design, the equipment, the material? Is it management, communications, or training? Having this suspect list guarantees that our investigation is thorough and leaves absolutely no stone unturned. Let's deep dive into just one of those categories for a second: design. Often, system designs and management decisions inadvertently create the exact conditions for failure. Consider the silo effect. This happens when process steps are designed completely in a vacuum, without any regard for the necessary interactions required to make the whole integrated system work. If the engineering department doesn't talk to the manufacturing department during the design phase, the process is inherently designed to fail from the very start. The root cause isn't the failure on the floor, it is the siloed design process that created it. And here is a deeply counterintuitive truth that always emerges during these investigations. Human error is rarely a root cause. The common assumption is that people are the problem, but the reality? Human performance is almost always an effect. When you're investigating human-related categories, you have to remember that communication, training, and incentives shape behavior far more than any individual's intent. People usually do the absolute best they can with the flawed, broken systems they are handed. Simply put, if a person fails, the system failed them first. Finally, Section 5, ensuring the fix stays fixed. Let's close the case for good. And this brilliantly illustrates a fundamental truth of operational excellence. Fixing a problem once absolutely does not ensure it will remain fixed forever. True prevention requires a continuous cycle, not repeated, exhausting firefighting. Once you implement a remedial action, guess what? The investigator's job isn't over. Step 1, you must periodically sample the output of your new process. Step 2, plot those results on a quality control chart so you can visually monitor stability over time. And Step 3, especially when a problem traces back to management issues like communication or training shortfalls, you must conduct periodic management audits. This ensures ongoing compliance and guarantees your long-term success. So we've walked through the mindset, the data gathering, the taxonomy of suspects, and the methods for sustainable prevention. I want to leave you with a final thought to apply to your own daily operations. When you look at how your team handles challenges, are you actually solving problems, or are you just pulling leaves off the weeds? It's time to grab your shovel, dig deep, and start pulling those problems up by the roots. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy investigating.